Life Unrehearsed, brought to you by Lianas Senior Transition Support, specialists in home care and senior residences.
And good afternoon. Welcome to Life Unrehearsed. Matt Delvecchio here, specializing in home care, downsizing, and the senior living industry. Thank you for tuning in. Coming up on the first half of the show, are your legal papers in order? Well, probably not. We're going to be talking wills, powers of attorney, protection mandates, advanced medical directives, and a lot more. And on the second half of the show, are you having trouble sleeping? Insomnia levels are on the rise. We're bringing in a specialist to help you sleep better. And do you feel your body is always in pain, especially as we age? Understanding and effectively managing pain becomes increasingly important. And I'm going to be talking to one of the leading doctors from McGill on how to deal with pain. Well, I hope you're having a nice long weekend. Just spectacular out there. Hope you're enjoying it. I'm looking forward to having the kids over tonight for a barbecue right after the show, and hopefully you're able to spend some time with some family, and maybe you're able to get some gardening done even this long weekend. Thank you very much for tuning in. Hey, I'd like to get a couple of shout-outs in the NDG area, in fact, and I know they're just wrapping up Porch Fest. It's really fantastic local musicians throughout NDG. Very, very cool stuff. And I want to give kudos to the New Hope Seniors Citizen Center. It's a great nonprofit community organization serving the senior population of NDG. They have their annual fundraiser called Walk for Hope. It includes a spirited walk in NDG and some community fare and a barbecue. That is happening this coming Saturday, May 25th. It's going to be from 9:30 to 12:30, and they begin their walk at Parc Le Duc, and that's directly across from their center at 6225 on Godfrey Avenue in NDG. Good luck with that fundraiser, really important one. And I also want to congratulate St. Monica's Church in NDG on their 75th anniversary. How about that? My parents actually got married at St. Monica's Church, and the church, headed up by Father Jason, is in the middle of an important fundraising campaign. And for more information or to donate, reach out to their office at the St. Monica's Church. Look them up online, or you can call 514-481-0267, and they can provide you with some more information about their fundraiser. And many thanks to loyal listener and writer extraordinaire Alice Lukács for bringing it to my attention. Thank you, Alice, and thank you for listening. Alrighty. You know, periodically, I address the extremely important topic of getting our legal papers in order. It really is crucial to deal with it. You know, conflicts will happen in families. I see it all the time in my world of helping seniors and their adult children. So many of these conflicts can be resolved if your legal papers are in order and updated. Unfortunately, things like wills and powers of attorney tend to be items that get put aside. It gets put into the category of, oh, I'll get around to it one day. And, well, it happens more than you think. More than 50%. That's right, 50% of Canadians don't even have a will. And that number becomes significantly higher for individuals that haven't updated their will in the last 5 years. As we age, we need to update our legal papers. Well, to help get us back on track, I'd like to bring in Notary, Maître Heather Trott. Maître Trott, welcome to Life Unrehearsed.
Thank you, Matt. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you coming into studio. Really such an important topic. We were talking off air. It's funny how many people will just, once they find out you're a notary, they're asking questions, right? And it's just, there's a lot of unknown out there and maybe some assumptions. So we're going to try to break down some of those assumptions. And let's start with the importance of having a will.
I think probably the most important reason that I tell clients that they should have a will that's up to date and in order is because it's the only way to make sure that your assets devolve and are transferred on to your loved ones in the way that you want it to be done. If people don't have a will, then we always have the civil code, and that tells us exactly who will inherit in the absence of a will, but that may not necessarily be what we would choose in terms of the distribution of our assets. So a will is the only way to ensure that it's our wishes that are actually being respected.
So important. Last thing we need is the government to tell us where it should be going, and it's so easy to be able to do that. in the form of a will. And now there are several different types of wills, I understand, Heather. And can you give us an example of some of these wills?
So there's actually three types, Matt, that are valid according to our civil code. The first one is a holograph will. So that's the one that people would know of as we take out a piece of paper, we date it, we write it all out in our hand, and we sign it. It's perfectly valid in terms of its form. And of course, the beauty of a holograph will is that there are no fees in order to prepare it. The second type of will that's valid is a will that's done before witnesses. And so oftentimes, if people purchase a kit on the internet or they buy a will kit, it's one that's done in front of witnesses, and that can be done on a computer. It could be the kit that you purchase. The drawback to that is that you need to make sure that the two witnesses that you choose to witness your signature are in no way implicated in your will. If those witnesses are implicated in your will, then it invalidates them actually acting as a witness. And again, about a will done in front of witness, other than the cost, if you've said or ordered a copy on the internet, there are no fees for the creation of that type of will. And then the third type of will, obviously the one that I'm most familiar with, of course, because I'm a notary, is the notarial will. The really big distinction between the three types of wills is that notarial wills don't need to be verified or probated after somebody passes away, but a holograph will and one done in front of witnesses does have to be probated. So while there's no fees at the beginning, there's certainly fees for your estate at the end if you don't do a notarial will.
Listening to Life Unrehearsed, Matt Del Vecchio here, and I'm talking about getting our legal papers in order with notary Maître Heather Trott, and I think that's an important point. I think you would think, hey, I could do this less expensively, but sometimes if probate's involved, then it ends up costing you more in the long run. Now, I'd like to talk about, we tend to think of wills as we get older, but I believe it's just as important to have a will, even if you have young children, isn't it?
It absolutely is important to have a will when you have young children, especially depending on the type of property that you have in your patrimony. For example, if you own houses, maybe many people own commercial buildings or property that they're revenue generating properties. But if minor children or young children inherit those types of properties, they're not able to actually transact with them, so they can't sell them, they can't refinance them, they can't pay off a mortgage. And in fact, the law states that if a minor child inherits an property that has a value superior to $40,000, then you have to actually open up what's called a tutorship council, and then you have to ask judicial authorization. So you have to get a judgment from a judge telling you what you're able to do with that property or not. So those, again, it's extremely fee heavy and very difficult, and administratively difficult, obviously, for parents to navigate.
And again, the answer being, even with young children, now's the time you might want to think about getting that will. And we are in Quebec, we're civil code, as you were explaining, and a lot of common law relationships. So what happens in a common law relationship without a will?
So as it stands now, legally, if you are in a common law relationship, there are no obligations to transmit property upon death to your common law spouse. Now, there is a proposed law change that is going to come into effect in 2025. It's Projet de loi 56, and that's going to have an impact on the common law couples who have children. So we're going to make a real distinction between common law couples who have children versus common law couples who don't have children. So until the new law comes into effect, if you're in a common law relationship and you do not have children, or if you do have children, none of your assets will automatically go over to your spouse. So in the example that you have a common law spouse and you have minor children, in the absence of a will, all your assets would go to your minor children, which kind of takes us back to what we were talking about before. We don't have any control over when those children actually receive the assets, and then we're always asking for judicial authorization for anything that we need to do.
Yet another reason to get that will done.
Absolutely.
Talking with notary Heather Trott. Heather, we have to head out to traffic, but when we come back, so much more to cover. However, we are going to address advanced medical directives and the big question you get, I'm sure, all the time: what is the difference between a power of attorney and protection mandate? It can be confusing. You're going to clear it all up for us. Welcome back to Life Unrehearsed. Matt Del Vecchio here, and we're going to continue our conversation about getting our legal papers in order with Notary Heather Trott. Heather, we were talking about the importance of wills before traffic, and now a question I get a lot is, what is an advanced medical directive? What do we mean by that?
A lot of people refer to that as sort of a do not resuscitate or a DNR clause, but it's actually much more than that. It's a provincial registry that exists so that individuals can choose kind of how to navigate their end of life in certain medical scenarios in the way that they feel comfortable. So there's a questionnaire. You can literally say, I would accept this type of treatment or I would refuse that type of treatment, and you can really detail it so that it meets your needs. And what I feel is so important about that registry is that it takes then the burden of making those decisions off of your family members and keeps it really firmly within your own grasp.
Such an important point, for two factors. One is you don't want the government making those decisions if you can avoid it. And sometimes you don't want your loved ones, your kids, your spouse to make those decisions either. So in Quebec, I think it's well set up, right? If you want to do an advanced medical directive, it's all set up. How do you find that form?
You can actually Google Advanced Medical Directive Quebec, and it will take you to a pamphlet that they actually want all of the individuals who are considering putting themselves onto the registry. You want to read through it, and then it gives you access to the form. Like I said, that you actually accept or refuse certain medical treatments in certain scenarios, and then you upload it into the system, and you are automatically registered. Rather,
They're making it easy.
They're really making it easy,
and really encourage. You want to be the boss of how you want to be taken care of. So it's advanced medical directives, very simple. Just look it up as that in Quebec. All right, Heather, I get this question. As you know, I'm dealing with a lot of adult children and seniors for their life transitions, and I constantly get asked about clarifying, I got a power of attorney. I'm good, aren't I, Matt? Or what is a protection mandate? And so I just would love to hear from you, and let's tackle one and then the next one. Let's start with power of attorney. What is that?
So a power of attorney is a document that becomes valid as of the time that it is signed, and it gives somebody or people, so it can be more than one attorney that you're choosing, it gives them administrative power. So you can that individual can then represent you for administration of your property only. Sometimes the misconception about a power of attorney is that it extends to more personal decisions, for example, medical decisions, etc. It is absolutely not. A power of attorney is for administration of somebody's patrimony only. And the way I explain it sometimes is, imagine that you've grown a third arm. You control the arm, but your attorney can now use the hand and represent you if you are perhaps not available or less interested in perhaps speaking to certain, governmental organizations. It's administrative only.
All right. And so a power of attorney is while you are still apt.
Exactly.
All right.
So you are authorizing somebody to represent you, but you can revoke that power of attorney at any time. So just like you said, Matt, it's so important to understand that powers of attorney require the person to be capable of revoking it. Wow. If you're no longer capable of revoking a power of attorney, then that power of attorney can no longer be used. So that's when we would shift into the protection mandate if someone's declared incapable.
All right. Talking with Notary Heather Trott. And so I love that explanation. Now let's move into a situation where you are no longer apt. And this is where what we call a protection mandate, correct? And so what is a protection mandate, and how does that differ than a power of attorney?
So the protection mandate is a document like a will in a sense that it sits waiting until it's necessary. A will is used when somebody passes away. A protection mandate is used when somebody is declared incapable by their physician. So that's the start of us understanding how we move forward with verifying whether this mandate should be homologated, which is a term which we're going to talk about. It is both the administration of your property, but also personal decisions. So medical decisions, medical follow-up, where you would reside, all of those deeply personal decisions are also included in the mandate. Because of course, for us to use the mandate, it starts with a physician declaring the person to be medically incapable.
All right. So while you are apt, you're going to someone like yourself, a notary, and saying, if ever I become inapt, now you're putting it in writing. We have a mandatory. This is going to be the person that will be able to make decisions for my health, my finances, my well-being. And, but you mentioned the word homologation, and that's a complicated word, but I've run into so many times talking to people and individuals, oh, I have my protection mandate. I'm good. Even if someone is inapt, you might have a mother or a husband or a wife that now has Alzheimer's as an example. Well, I have my protection mandate. Well, it's not over, because you actually have to execute that mandate, which in Quebec we call homologate. So very quickly, what does that mean, homologate?
So as we were talking about before, when somebody is declared to be incapable by their physician, we have a medical diagnosis of incapacity. But what homologation is, which is basically just a formal way of saying verifying or probating, it's actually taking that physician's diagnosis and the psychosocial report that you're so aware of, Matt, which is giving us a sense of what the family situation is, what the family dynamic is. And then we're having that person declared legally incapable. So it's taking a medical incapacity diagnosis and then translating that and going through the legal process where we obtain a judgment where the person is declared legally incapable. And that judgment gives then all the full powers to the mandate. So practically speaking, the powers are taken away from the individual who's incapable and now put into the hands of the person that they chose to be their mandatory.
Got it. And I think I've seen a lot where you've got a power of attorney and protection mandate all in the same document. You're just doing it in the same document, covering yourself whether you are apt or inapt.
Exactly. But what the law does also in terms of that is that if you've signed a power of attorney and when we begin the process of homologation of the mandate, as soon as we've obtained our court file number, you can actually carefully and thoughtfully use the power of attorney again. So as we said before, incapacity means that you should stop using the power of attorney. But if you start to proceed with the homologation of the mandate, you can actually use the power of attorney again. But as long as we're in the context of the homologation of the mandate.
Got it. Okay, very important point there. All right, we're quickly running out of time. However, it happens. Not everyone has a will. Not everyone has a power of attorney. Not everyone has a protection mandate. It's always encouraged. But let's say, God forbid, you don't have a protection mandate and you become inapt, whether through an accident, whether it's through over time, through cognitive reasons. So what happens in those situations? In about 30 seconds.
So the only option we have now since November 2022 is opening what's called a tutorship. And a tutorship gives the tutor limited administrative powers. So quickly, again, the beauty of signing a mandate is it allows you to choose the person or people you believe are best placed to represent you, and it allows you to give them the level of power that you're comfortable with, versus a tutorship, which is very restricted in terms of the administrative power, and then you're asking for judicial authorization again and again.
So it is a big process to get tutorship. It can be done.
Yes.
All the more reason take advantage. Get that protection mandate done up while you are apt. All right. Thank you very much, Heather. Really appreciate you taking some time. So informative. How can our listeners reach you?
I have a website, so it's www.notaretrott.com, and it's TROTT.com. So anybody who's interested in hearing about our services can check out the website and contact us at the office.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
All right. That's Notary Heather Trott on the show. All right, coming up next, are you having trouble sleeping? Well, insomnia levels are on the rise. I've got Dory Rizzo from the Insomnia Clinic Montreal who's going to be joining me to share some strategies for us to sleep better. That's going to be coming up after a CTV News update.